It was a late, quiet night. My wife, Alice, was asleep upstairs, the rhythmic breathing that usually calmed me now a background hum to my racing thoughts. For months now, our marriage had felt off like a machine running without oil functional, but cold. Alice had grown distant, and intimacy had become nothing more than routine. This particular night, as usual, I found myself alone with my laptop, caught in that guilty ritual I'd developed, let's say, looking for ways to pass the time. Just as I went to delete my browser history, a strange link appeared in my recent activity sinister. I hadn't visited it, and my wife barely knew how to navigate beyond shopping sites. Curiosity led me to click. The page loaded to reveal a dark web forum disturbing enough. But what I saw next turned my stomach. A conversation between two usernames, Gus, our cat's name, and Haystack detailed my wife's chilling arrangement she'd hired someone to kill me. I felt the blood drain from my face. She'd arranged for a hit. I spent the night wide awake, lying beside her, flinching each time she shifted. Every small movement felt loaded with dark intent. The following morning, I sat at breakfast numb, moving mechanically as Alice, oblivious, brewed coffee. I wondered if the hit was already planned and the coffee was laced. Out of the blue, she asked about my day, pressing for details on a work meeting I'd planned. My gut twisted. Was she gathering intel for my murder? Distracted, I muddled through my morning meetings at work, pretending nothing was wrong. My business partner Brad caught on, offering advice to get some rest before game night. I'd forgotten entirely tonight. We were hosting our weekly game with friends. As the day wore on, my paranoia grew. Every shadow in the underground parking, every car that slowed near me, sent my mind spinning with dark possibilities. That night, hosting felt like a surreal nightmare, Alice laughing and mingling, as though she didn't have murder on her mind. When it was my turn to ask a question, I nearly lost my composure. I wanted to throw out something loaded, like, would you hire a hitman to kill your spouse? But Alice intercepted, offering refills to the group. She acted as if everything was normal. Could I have misinterpreted things? Yet, that message on Sinister lingered, nagging at my thoughts. After everyone left, I needed to know if the hit was real. I returned to the forum, finding dozens of threads from people conspiring against their spouses. Then, I stumbled on my wife's disturbing conversation again. It left no doubt she'd ordered my death. Feeling helpless, I set up an alias and messaged the hitman myself, asking for a meeting. A reply came faster than I'd expected. He wanted to meet at a seedy bar down by the dock seals at 1 a.m. Shaking but resolute, I drove down, slipping inside the bar and finding a shadowed corner. After half an hour, he arrived, a gaunt, middle-aged man with greasy hair and a calculating stare. He assessed me with an unsettling calm. My voice shook as I asked him to cancel the hit. He stared back, unblinking. She's already paid. Desperate, I blurted out the unthinkable. I'll pay you more to kill her. Instead, the words tasted bitter. He wrote down a figure and slid it over. I had 24 hours to meet his price. The next day, guilt crashed over me. I couldn't fathom my transformation. Just days ago, I was horrified at her betrayal, and now I'd done the same. That night, Alice, of all people, suggested we go to Donatello's, the restaurant from our first date. Was this her final act of remembrance? The evening was a strange echo of our past. She laughed, and for a moment I almost believed we could be normal again. But as we left the restaurant, a man stepped out of a shadowed alley and reached into his pocket. Instinctively, I pulled Alice into the waiting Uber, heart pounding. Only later I realized she hadn't shown an ounce of concern. The following weeks passed in grim suspense. Alice stayed out late, and we barely spoke. My guilt was eating me alive. I finally decided to confront her. But before I could open my mouth, Alice burst into tears. I've been seeing someone, she confessed. The name she spoke next hit me like a ton of bricks. Brad, my business partner. The affair pieced together the puzzle. Alice wasn't the one who ordered my death. She was as clueless as I'd been. It was Brad who had paid off the hitman. He'd lured her into an affair, and somewhere along the line, he decided I needed to be removed. A horrifying realization settled over me. I'd fallen for a scheme, led by a con man who preyed on desperate spouses. He'd listened to Alice's drunken talks with Brad at that bar, piecing together enough to set up a fake murder-for-hire plot. and extort me. The hitman, if he even was one, used my paranoia to drag me into his twisted game. I pulled Alice into a hug, too stunned to process it all fully. As she wept in remorse for her affair, I struggled with my own guilt for plotting her death. I never revealed my dark dealings, nor did I ever see the hitman again. But from that twisted experience, we rekindled a quiet but firm resolve to rebuild what we'd lost. Months later, sometimes in quiet moments, Alice reaches for my hand. She doesn't know the depths of my betrayal, nor will she ever.